I wonder if we got a box of those serpents that we hear in the first reading for those who call complaining, if the complaining might cease a little bit. We hear something interesting in the first reading. We hear that every time this bronze serpent was raised, and as people looked upon it, they were saved. I wonder what was on that serpent. I wonder what it represented. And some of the things that I've come up with is that perhaps the people who were complaining, seeing that others were dying by being bitten by the serpents, upon looking upon that bronze serpent, were reminded of the very reason that bronze serpent was there in the first place, of their own sinfulness, of their own things. The gospel story today is Jesus forewarning or forecasting, if you will, his crucifixion. He's reminding those who are listening, most especially the religious leaders of his time, of who he is and what he's about. They have a problem believing him, and they have a problem believing him because they are all too consumed in their own iniquity. When you and I think upon the cross, not a bronze serpent, but on the cross, what do we see? For some people, I suspect you would say, many probably in a very romantic way, oh, we see love, oh, we see Jesus Christ, oh, we see all of the beautiful and wonderful things. But I see the dysfunction of humanity, the ugliness of humanity. Everything that is wrong with humanity is what I see on the cross. Because it was hatred, it was scapegoating, it was spitefulness, it was everything that we see during these next couple of days as we enter Holy Week, most especially as we hear in the Passion narrative that we will have this Sunday. We hear what placed Jesus on the cross. And in the very same way that I ask you what these people saw on that bronze serpent, when you and I look at the cross, we should be reminded of what placed Jesus there. To look away or to think otherwise is to ignore our reality. The first rule of any psychological therapy is to acknowledge what the problem is. Unless you and I acknowledge what's there, what's wrong, there is no therapist in the world that can ever help us. We have to be honest. We have to be truthful. And I think that as you and I look upon the cross and we see there what placed Jesus on the cross, maybe the question for us is, what am I doing that places Jesus on that cross? Where is my life, my sin, where I've missed the mark, which is another word for sin? Where is that have allowed me or has allowed me to place Jesus on that cross? You see, my brothers and sisters, when we do that, when we are honest, when you and I are capable of being honest with ourselves, that's when looking upon the cross brings salvation. Because we realize then and there that what kept Jesus on the cross was not the hatred, was not the scapegoating, was not the anger, was not the bitterness, but the love that he had for the Father and the love that he has for you and for me. If that sounds cliche-ish, I got news for you. This is the reason we look upon the cross. This is the reason when you and I are honest, and as we look upon the cross, things begin to change in our lives. Why? Because there hung the salvation of the world, free of sin, but one that wanted to die so that you and I might live. Maybe as we enter in these very beautiful days that are upon us, as the rhetoric in the gospel begins to move towards the inevitable, which is Jesus' crucifixion, maybe as our journey in Lent begins to come to its end, what a great opportunity and wonderful time for you and for me to look at our lives and realize yes, there are things that have made me a broken human being. Yes, there are things in my life that have allowed me, or I have allowed myself, to miss the mark, to make errors, to sin. But upon that cross is the one who can make everything right. What a very interesting question we have in the gospel story today. Who are you? They still weren't able to see. And perhaps you and I, in the secret of our heart, still ask that question. Who are you? Notice, please, Jesus' answer. What I told you from the beginning. My brothers and sisters, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That same Jesus that invites you and me to enter into intimacy with him is the same Jesus that hanging on the cross reminds us that we never, ever return hatred with hatred, but we always seek the path of nonviolence, which he taught us. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. This is the path of nonviolence. This is the path of every Christian. And however difficult that might seem for you and for me, make no mistake, that's the goal to attain and the goal to embrace. And perhaps there, as we look upon the cross, you and I might be saved. Amen.